Hey everyone, I'm Jim. Today I want to talk about the Hudson Place launch that was just over last weekend. I call it my May 2026 market analysis, decoding the Hudson Place launch and what it reveals about Singapore's next property hotspots. Before I proceed, if you find this helpful, please give me a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to this video, and if you want me to assist you with your property transaction, do get in touch. Okay, so if you're listening on this on the podcast, my slides are in the description. Feel free to check it out so you can follow through more easily. Let's dive right in. All right, so what happened over last weekend? Hudson Place launched at close to 2,500 PSF on average, 2,458 average PSF, 327 total units, and they sold about 61.5% in their debut weekend, over 200 units sold. Location-wise, you may already be familiar, it's around 1 km or more from the One North MRT station. This was not a cheap entry point success story. This was buyers accepting close to 2005 in an emerging media circle location, right? Why is this such an important, such a big wow factor, I feel, in the market? Well, we must see what happened previously for better context. In April 2024, just about a year ago, the first launch in media circle was Bloomsbury. And in fact, just 1 year ago, as I mentioned, Bloomsbury, if you recall, what was the take-up rate? It was only a mere 25% because it was a pioneer location. There was much uncertainty whether buyers are willing to pay for that location, whether people are willing to rent, whether people will be willing to stay in future. Hence, only 25% sold. Following that, what happened in mid-2025, something flipped. The first project in Science Park for around 40 years, Lyndenwoods, right, sold really well, I believe more than 90%, right? The market had warmed up to the location by then, right? Bloomsbury also started to build momentum and the buyer confidence in media circle grew. Fast forward to today, early 2026, about close to 9-10 months since the launch of Bloomsbury Residences, it sits now at close to 90% sold. And the narrative for the district is firmly established. The price ceiling is tested and validated even with transactions crossing $2,700 PSF. We see right now, we're not surprised anymore. Hudson Place has launched and the market is very warm. We're pretty hot right now. Like we saw Tengah as well, 99% sales on day one, right? So here, Hudson Place, 61.5% sold on the debut weekend, right? Bloomsbury, they absorbed the early uncertainty, and Hudson Place benefited from the reconfidence in the market, right? It's a classic story of a pioneer follower where the first launch in a new era tends to be a bit lukewarm. So what exactly changed? What does it reveal about the area? I feel the area was once used to be very investor-centric, where Buona Vista didn't have a lot of condos. Then you had your One North Eden, you had One North Residences, of course, being the very, very first property located in that area. You had Hue at One North as well. 3-bedroom deluxe and the premium units C1 and C2, 100% sold out, 28 units. Not just that, I think very, very tellingly, the 4-bedroom premium, which tends to be more for the owner-occupiers, where prices were going upwards of 2.7 million, close to 3 million range, they were 88% sold of these large format units. I think this tells a lot about the buyer profile that is entering this area. It's not just a pure investor-centric, but families may even consider living there. For the buyer profile, of course, majority Singapore citizen and local PRs, which are the main profile of buyers in the market today. So if you really look further back to the first launch at Bloomsbury and we look at the price trend, you realize that all these projects are listed on the screen here, Hudson Place, Lyndenwoods, Bloomsbury, they are all post-harmonized projects and the average of around 24xx PSF has actually set a price floor for properties in the media circle. To contrast this to the OCR benchmarks, previously we had properties such as Elta, Chuan Park crossing the 2005 $100 PSF on average, and very, very recently, even Vela Bay crossing the $2,800 PSF on average. I would say that media circle for RCR location is pretty good value, hence we see the strong sales over last weekend. This actually reveals something as well. Buyers are not necessarily hunting the cheapest property in the market. Of course, we saw that in Tengah, but more than that in Tengah, there is a growth story. Like what I share in this slide for those following me on YouTube, there is a master plan transformation. Buyers have already seen over these years that our government, usually when they say plans, they follow through. And hence, these investors are willing to pay for districts, for areas with a clear government-backed transformation roadmap and visible infrastructure. It shows that buyers are willing to pay for master planned transformation and for districts, areas with clear government-backed transformation roadmaps and visible infrastructure investment. There also needs to be a certain amount of lifestyle and employment notes, right? Which of course Media Circle takes many of those boxes. Not to mention an exit story. I think for investors in Media Circle, they are also buoyed by the profits seen by other recently completed condos such as One North Eden and Normanton Park, where investors managed to get healthy returns. The premium is not simply in MRT distance, as shown in Media Circle, but it's more on confidence in the future district. What really struck me though was, in fact, that I feel that this looks very much like Lentor all over again, right? Where we know Media Circle now has 2 plots. There are in fact another 2 plots of land up for sale, with probably a few more down the road, right? Just like Lentor, it shows that multiple GLS sites do not automatically destroy pricing. In a strong master plan enclave, multiple launches can in fact reinforce buyer confidence and create a very clear price floor. In fact, that was what I was sharing for many years since Lentor started launching, that Lentor isn't so much of oversupply. In fact, the supply is a benefit to buyers because it creates one of the strongest structural PSF floors in the entire nation. So, as I state in the slides there, criticism, too much supply, possible cannibalization between projects, and oversupply dominating the headlines. When, on the other hand, we see from the start, Lentor mentioned when it launched at 1,009 PSF, some units, in fact, many crossing 2,000 PSF, it felt like, oh, wow, it's a new high for the area. How can we accept it, right? But as we see more and more plots coming, we realize that the later plots, in fact, reinforce the price floor and in fact push prices higher, with Lentor mentioned even going up to more than 2001 PSF on average. With each project selling well in that enclave, the narrative is strengthened further and further, right? The benchmark price is validated and even raised with time. So with that said, where does the market look next for buyers who miss Hudson Place and are still looking for something that fits their investment profile? Well, I want to spotlight 4 properties. The first is Dunearn House, coming up soon. It's in Turf City. It's the first mover for the Turf City transformation in District 11 and in a very famous school corridor with, of course, all the prestigious schools along that stretch. We have Lentor Garden, the 5 fingers. This is the last finger, right? It's in a mature estate, I would say, by now, with so many launches already and pricing already tested and so secure. You are near the Lentor MRT. You won't have to deal with much construction because you're one of the last plots. Next is Amberwood at Holland, District 10, low density, Holland Link, of course, near to MGS, which I think is a very good point. Next is Lucerne Grand by CDL. Next to Lakeside MRT, the JLD transformation is right at your doorstep, and you are one of the first harmonized projects in that area. I do a comparison as well when I put these 4 upcoming launches side by side, where you can see the TCs, the district, the MRT access, the key anchor, as well as the risk profile, which I want to touch on here. For Dunearn House, you probably have more of a pioneer uncertainty, where you're the first mover into a new transformation. For Lentor Garden, I would say it's a pretty much low risk, structurally very safe PSF entry. Furthermore, we know that a new land bid for a future plot in Lentor is going to be priced around maybe 10 to 20% higher even. We have Amberwood at Holland, which I think is I would say the dark horse, because the second plot of land, both are bid by the same developer, Sim Lian. It's in fact a proven district, District 10, where the owners there like to stay in somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful, but yet it's within 1 kilometer to the very prestigious and good school MGS. Fourth, Lucerne Grand, minutes to the MRT, integrated pretty much integrated, I would say. The only commercial plot, I think, there for West Side lovers, it has a very, very good story for the medium to long-term transformation horizon. Okay. Most importantly, to all you buyers, don't walk into the show flat blind. Know your land costs, know your estimated break-evens of the developer, know what layouts are traps, what actually sells and what's actually good and what might feel good but isn't really worth buying. And very, very importantly, do your comparable market analysis. The right district, the right product at the wrong price, the wrong quantum is still a wrong decision. My name is Jim Tay. If you enjoyed this video, again, give me a like, a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you want me to make more of such videos, I really appreciate it. I'll see you in my next video.